McElroy, ESPN college football analyst. He's calling Georgia Ole Miss Saturday, 3:30 Eastern on ABC, and co-host of Mac and Cube in the morning in Alabama, WJOX. How's morale? How you feeling?
What's going on, buddy? It's been a long time. How's everything been?
Well, it sounds like you're getting important here, and you kind of, you start to kick people to the curb. I get it.
I just miss the good old days where we just, went scorched earth on people and took Wonderlic tests. Why don't we just do that? I mean, what's old is new. Let's do it again.
When's the last time you used the expression "D's nuts"?
I think my last conversation with Coach Saban, so that would have been in July.
You're probably not surprised of what he's doing on TV. I think most of America probably is, because these guys are buttoned up. It's like Belichick. Yeah. The number of players who say, you got to be around Belichick. He's got a great sense of humor. I go, well, he's never going to show it to me. I saw glimpses of that with Saban, but what do you see when you're watching Game Day with him?
Well, I find it so funny because I was really curious, like you. Not that I knew he'd be good. He's got great acumen, and he's funny and witty, and he's constantly jabbing. And so I thought that it would carry over. I just didn't know how much of himself we'd see. I thought he'd maybe be a bit guarded, a little tentative early. But the dynamic between him and McAfee cracks me up, man. I don't know whether McAfee's feeding him or he's making him take his tie off, like whatever the circumstances are, it's been pretty funny to see two guys that are kind of opposite ends of the spectrum. Has been hilarious, but I think he's done great. But are you surprised? Like, you've been around him enough. It's just not that surprising. I think people thought that you were going to get some press conference setting Saban where he's trying to enforce this type of cadence so that he can communicate with his players. But that's not really how he is behind closed doors.
Well, he had to go to press conferences. He gets to go to College Game Day. And I think him and McAfee are like a buddy movie where, right, they're just completely opposite. And I think Saban is enough of a competitor. You want to keep up with the level of everybody around you. Whether it's Reese or Desmond or Herbie, McAfee in there, you want to make sure your level is the same. Your energy is the same. And I think the surroundings, he's out in the environment there, and you could see it. It kind of, he absorbs it. I was going to ask you about, how the college football regular season has been impacted this year because of the new playoff system. How would you sum that up?
I was really concerned about it, Dan. Like, I wouldn't have probably said that publicly. But I was concerned that the one thing that we really had in our bag as college football fans and as people that cover the sport was the do or die nature of the sport. And that concerned me, that if we got rid of that, would the reaction be as strong? And a lot of what makes our sport unique is that we have that debate about who should be, who is, who could be if given the opportunity. If the playing field was level, this team could do whatever. Like, that debate has raged on for 100+ years. Now we have slowly but surely moved away from the debate to playoff formats that are more digestible for fans that don't live it every day. But I was concerned, and I don't know if we know just yet what the long-term impact will be, because if we start seeing Ohio State, Oregon 3 times a year, will that matchup that they play in October mean as much? That I'm genuinely curious about. So I don't know if we'll know the impact yet, but I still get the same reaction from fans every Monday if their team lost. Even though they know, hey, we lost, and at the end of the day, like, we're still in the playoff mix, but Texas was freaking out when they lost the way they lost to Georgia. And Georgia was freaking out with the way they lost to Bama. And I'm sure Ohio State fans were freaking out with how things finished at the end at Oregon. And I'm sure Penn State feels like their life is over after last week. So the reaction is still as strong as ever, even though you're afforded opportunities to screw up and still have a chance.
Feels like when people see the brackets and they see BYU in the quarterfinals, that's when you're going to have some people upset. They're like, wait a minute. You got these first-round matchups, and then BYU is right there?
Yeah. And they're going to say, here's the other thing that's funny is, and I think this will be funny because people are going to look at it and say, hang on a second. So in this conference that we just had to navigate, we had to beat Texas, Georgia, at Ole Miss, Florida at home, a neutral site against Arkansas. And our reward is the same as the team that did not play a single team in the top 25. And they have beaten a bunch of teams that that are 8-4, 7-5. It just, I think that's where people are going to be like, hang on a second, why is the reward for winning the Big Ten the same as winning for the Big 12? And I think that's where we could find some chaos in the future.
Yeah, that's what I wonder, the tweaks that are going to be made, because we're never satisfied. We're going to tweak it. We're eventually going to probably have 24 teams, not 12. We're eventually going to go to a pro system. I mean, this is all headed towards, it feels like a conclusion that we've been waiting for. Do you feel that way, that this is where the sport's headed? Whether you want to or not, but it feels like that's where we're going.
I think we're heading to further expansion. To what number we get to, I think 16 is most likely, because people are going to look at it and say, all right, well, I want a home game in the playoffs. And now I like having a bye week. That's great. But our fans want a home game in the playoffs. And while the conference championship games have been really valuable for a really long time, do the commissioners and the decision makers eventually determine, all right, is the conference championship game as impactful as it once was under the previous format? Or are we better suited maybe getting rid of the conference championship game in favor of more home playoff game environments? And that's what I think will be the conversation that's had down the road. I think we will, in the near term, expand to 14 so that the Big Ten and the SEC are given that first round bye and everybody else has to play a first round game. Because right now for the Big 12 champ to get the same thing as the SEC champ is ridiculous. So I think at some point that's where we'll get to, but I'm not sure they'll be done at 14. I would imagine 16 is the most likely. 24 feels bloated. I don't think we'll get there, but I could certainly see 16 at some point in the future.
Have they capped, what is it, $21 million you can spend on your roster? Is that the number?
It's dependent on the settlement, which they are estimating somewhere between 20 and 23.
Okay.
So I don't know if they know exactly where that's headed, but it'll be somewhere in that vicinity, yes.
And SMU is spending that kind of, I know Ohio State did, but here comes SMU, and now it's above board. They can do it legally. They don't have to give out Trans Ams or houses or anything.
As someone that's from the Dallas-Fort Worth area, I think SMU could easily eclipse $21 million. I think the term was said by people in that closed-door meeting that said, hey, yeah, we won't take a single dollar of television revenue for the next 9 years. You just let us in.
Amazing.
And what their reaction was, it's only a couple $100 million. It's not that big. That was the reaction.
Yeah.
A couple $100 million, no problem. 6, 7 of us write a check.
I'm going to give you this. You can have SMU's future.
Yeah.
Or USC's.
Ooh, it's a good question. Can I think SMU has the better path, but I'd rather be in the Big Ten.
Okay.
I just don't know what's going to happen with the ACC.
But it's close, which is really what the answer is here. But
it's like you said, and I think that you are going to be at a unique advantage. This is just like next level, Dan. So excuse me for pontificating. I'm curious if your thoughts on this. I think there's a certain built-in accountability in small towns where the players are extremely recognizable. So if you're in, say, Clemson, South Carolina, it's really hard for you to, if you're making $1 million a year as the starting quarterback, it's hard for you to go out in public and live like a rock star because everybody's going to know, oh, hey, there's Cade Klubnik. He's out at the bars on the Thursday night. But at Miami or at LA or in Dallas, like you can fly under the radar a little bit. And now you can keep up with the Joneses if you're making $1 million a year. So I do have a theory that small town teams will be more successful in the long term, but that's only because of the accountability that's kind of built in a community like that.
I was in a steakhouse in an SEC city, and there was a very expensive car out front, and it was running. And I said to the owner, I said, whose car is that? And then he told me who it was, and it was a player for the football team. Personalized license plate. Like you couldn't have, if you were trying, you wanted everybody to see. He did a great job in letting everybody see, that's my car. And I'm like, golly, that's an expensive car out there. And he just left it running while he was inside getting something to eat. I was like, all right. You didn't get that at Alabama, though, right?
No. One, that would require an expensive steakhouse in Tuscaloosa, and at the time we did not have that. We had a couple nice restaurants, but no. I'm
talking about the car. You weren't offered anything.
No, I had a 10-year-old Ford F-150 when I was in college, and my dad and I had a bet my last year that if we won the SEC, we would trade cars for my senior year, and he had a Range Rover. So I got to drive a Range Rover my last year because I won a bet against my dad. But no.
Yeah, but then people probably thought, hey, did you see McElroy?
100%.
Got a Range Rover.
100%
right?
people. And it was a company car. That was the best part. So it was good material.
Look at McElroy.
Yeah, everybody thought, there's McElroy. Wins a natty. Write him a check. No, not the case. It was Dad's car.
Okay. All right. I'll take your word for it. Glad you're doing well. Great to talk to you again.
Great to see you, DP. Hope you're well, man.
That's Greg McElroy. He won a national championship back in 2010 as the Alabama quarterback. And he's got Ole Miss and Georgia coming up at 3:30 Eastern on ABC. We're going to yes, Eden.
It's cute that 15 years later he's sticking with the dad's car story. I give him commitment. I give him some, credit for the commitment.
Yeah.
No, what's my dad's car? I didn't. What? You think this is mine? This is my dad's car.
Sometimes you forget the lies that you tell. You're like, no. Wait, what did I say?
Roll Tide. To believe him.
I got a Range Rover. Yeah, I got a Range Rover from my dad. Yeah, that's right. Now I remember the story.